So I throw the session open for question answers. Possibly we are running behind schedule. We can take few questions from the audience for the speakers out here.
Yeah, so I'll tell you the cost, the commodity, this is a very interesting point, and this has actually been done, a lot of work has been done, you can get information. The commodity pricing is dependent on certain factors. The commodity pricing is not related to the cost at all. So it has nothing to do with the cost management and how the commodity pricing will be done. But if you look at competitive pricing, what happens is when you have a new type of technology comes, then the traditional, this happened even in the case of oil, which is a globally demand commodity. The developments that in US had impacted at the same time an economic downturn took place. So the countries which are having, Australia for example, significantly, Africa for example, these have commodities. These commodities are not in any method of total cost management. So if you are in a position to do a certain degree of planning in terms of what your costs are and what your output is and what is the kind of value that the customer is getting, the countries have greater flexibility in terms of getting a pricing done properly. So the pricing would become, for example, one of the greatest experiments that our country has done is the management of cane pricing and sugar final. So both are controlled. Both are controlled by the government. And that has not worked well at all because we have not been able to do the link between the way in which the factors of production have influenced the sugarcane production and the way in which it is passed through a relatively modern process of crushing and converting into sugar. This is where there is a lot of work that can be done. And work has been done, but a lot more can be done. And the commodity countries also, their own predictability and their own macroeconomic management would improve subsequently if they are in a position to predict and manage their costs in relation to that. So if they know that there is, today, to take an example, not to mention a specific country, Saudi Arabia had a major issue related to this primarily in the last 3-4 years because of downtrend in the oil prices. If they had a cost management institution working within them, they would have been able to better off manage this because they committed to a large amount of expenditure on a macroeconomic side, keeping the commodity pricing as an input.
I wish to make a few comments and then get the response from the SAP executives who are here. First, I wish to clarify that I'm not from a competing firm, not a firm competing with SAP. I am a corporate consultant, and most of my income is derived from companies who have already implemented SAP. But I still have some issues on how SAP has contributed towards better realization of total cost management. I have a few issues on that. I think the first issue arises because you chose to call that the controlling module. That's where the problem started. So companies never looked at it as a decision-making model. They looked at it as a controlling model. And later, you brought in the PCA. You said profit center accounting, and people looked at it as accounting. They didn't look at it as profit center management. Then you brought in ABC, and you chose to call it parallel ABC. So that meant that what is real costing is product costing, PC. And what is ABC is something parallel. I mean, you can do it, you can do away with it, whatever you like. And I think you were too late in using the term cost management for that model, for that module. I mean, I think you have changed it, but I think you changed it too late. Now, this had a profound impact on the corporate sector, where that module, CO module of SAP, had come to be regarded as something that will satisfy statutory compliance on costing, and not as a decision-making tool. And I think there is a great amount of education that SAP must do in order to, I'm not saying that SAP as in its latest versions cannot support total cost management. It can. But I think the tremendous amount of education is required to make corporates realize that that controlling module need not be for inventory valuation.
So thank you, sir, for the feedback. In fact, I was happy, as I was told before the session, that we are cutting down on the Q&A. So I was more like a happy student, looking forward to go to the next grade without the annual exams. But point taken. So historically, what you're saying is right. And to a large extent, it is also, you can also relate it to the readiness of the customer, okay, in terms of leveraging or automating the then existing processes, okay, on a solution like SAP. And it's just not SAP, but I was with Oracle before, and I spent 6 years in Oracle, about close to 6 years in BAN. All of them had the same issue, okay, with respect to how can we get the right kind of capability implemented at a customer location, for the simple reason that the customer was not ready, okay, or he was still trying to find answers. But yes, in the recent versions, or in other words, as I said, the studies that we have done, and the result of those studies translating as innovations in our current offerings, we have managed to at least keep the technology ready. Okay, and customers who are forward-looking, like for example JSW, one of our major customers, have taken that leap of faith in adopting technology to get those benefits. Valid point, but yes, we are working on it.
Yeah, I have one question to SAP team, Mr. Murli. See, you are knowing JSW very well. We have been one of the major implementer of SAP across all our value chain. But later, I mean, what is becoming a big problem for all industries, that we found SAP is not agile. So whenever we have to implement something, because the industry is expanding, every time there are new challenges, new areas for digitalization, for example. And so whenever we try to implement something, and when we look for a SAP solution, it says that it will, first of all, the cost of licenses and the licensing issues. Secondly, the issues with respect to implementation, you have to find another implementation partner will come and implement it for you. So this process becomes very complex. We today, the age is that we look for a quick fix solutions. Systems which are agile, easy to integrate. So this is something which is missing, I mean, in SAP.
Okay, so, should I take it? Okay, so what typically, if you look at the history of SAP, okay, SAP was founded in, I think, early 70s, okay, and conventionally all our applications were coded basis the German engineering, as we call it, and it had to comply with the fact that it has to be database agnostic. Okay, so for example, it had to be used on Oracle as a database, it had to be used on DB2 or MS SQL, etc., as the case may be. So this actually meant an important point for our developers, which meant we have to keep in mind the constraints of those databases, if need be, as a part of our, I would say, fundamental programming when we code the application, when we actually design and build our applications. But that to some extent did impact the agility of our solution, okay? Because there were set ways in which you typically could execute a process, and if you would want to change database, okay? And what SAP has done in the last 2 years is brought the benefits of that in-memory database and in-memory data processing onto the application layer. So if you look at the current, I would say, avatar of SAP, which is the S4 HANA, as we call it, it is as agile as you can ever imagine. Okay, and if you look at it, we did a GST forum about a fortnight ago, where we had about close to I think 1,500 plus delegates from the industry sector, and the feedback that we got from them, having understood what S4 HANA can do, is very positive. I'm not saying that S4 HANA is a solution for GST. Okay, I'm not saying S4 HANA is likely to resolve the puzzles that you're trying to resolve in your respective industry segments from a GST standpoint. But having said that, the rate at which you expect technology to adapt is delivered through the latest innovations that SAP has. On the consulting bit, we have to coexist with our partners. SAP Consulting has its own, I would say, implementation services, but of course it comes at a premium. Okay, so customers do have a choice. So, for example, in your case, I believe it was IBM, and you had a couple of other SIs working with you. The problem that even customers sometimes commit, or is not working with the same implementation partner end to end, for all the initiatives that they run out of, like, say, a single vendor like SAP. So you would have, if need be, an core ERP implementation done from partner A, an extended solution of SAP being implemented by partner B. Likewise, there are multiple stakeholders are involved. Obviously, all this is bound to lead to a situation which, is not desirable, right? And of course, we as an SAP are educating our partners with respect to how can they build skills. So we in fact have a skill development kind of an arm, which has got a repository of every resource in India across all partners with respect to what skills they have, what educational qualifications they have, what experience do they have, etc. that we recommend. But then the choice and the call is ultimately the customers, which we can't influence.
So, one last question and we'll close with that. We are grossly running behind schedule, and other questions, there are slips distributed. If there are any, kindly pass it on to CII for their response separately to you on the same. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to raise a point which Mr. Raman raised, which is very pertinent. That is addressing the TCM enabling with the existing customers of SAP or Oracle. I draw out of my previous experience with SAP, where what Mr. Raman raised as a point is the budget of the client for implementing a new solution or tweaking the existing solution to re-engineer SAP or any other ERP to meet the TCM needs, right? Fine, it is not only the budget. Budget maybe the company may be willing to spend, but I also see a challenge in terms of the legacy data. Because once you do some kind of tweaking in the SAP, then what happens is it does a backflush of passing on entries in the financial books, right? I'm saying with respect to, say, changing some overhead recovery rate. You change the budgeted overhead recovery rate and it backflushes and pass some entries. So what will happen to the past data? You are able to, if you are doing something through mid of the year, already there are some past data and there is also an opening stock. Do you see that as a challenge apart from the budget constraint? Should I explain more? Is my question not clear?
The way I have interpreted your question is, just because we've, say, for example, broken down a cost element which we were capturing at level X to a level Y which is much lower, it will pass entries in the previous periods. If your previous periods have already been closed, it will not do it.
Yes, yes.
The whole issue is, it's a question of discipline. We've seen customers who have three periods, a period which was 3 years ago still open.
Okay, this is a discipline issue.
I mean, okay. We'll have that debate on the way to the airport.
I believe we'll
That
close
is
on
where the issue is.
that. What I hear out from you is this can be taken offline also, but
Fine.
what I see here is a more of an implementation challenge, which typically an implementation partner and the implementation organization can take up. So thanks a lot for wonderful, enthusiastic questions and wonderful presentations both from SAP and Mr. Thiruvengadam. And I hope it has got a lot of takeaways for all of us. Thank you. Thanks a lot.